The city of Green Bay and two former investigators are formally denying claims they framed brothers Robert and David Bintz for the 1987 murder of Sandra Lyson, a crime the brothers were later exonerated of after more than 20 years in prison. The Bintz brothers filed a federal civil rights lawsuit accusing former state special agent Richard Lewell and former Green Bay police detective Robert Hagelin of fabricating evidence, coercing a false confession, and concealing evidence that could have cleared them. The city is also named accused of being responsible for Hagelin's actions while he was on duty. In new court filings this week, both men deny any misconduct and ask a judge to dismiss the case. However, Lewell acknowledges he wrote the main investigative report in the case and confirms David Bintz's questioning was not video or audio recorded, while insisting that David's statements were, quote, not coerced or involuntary, and that there was no coercion or fabrication of evidence. Hagelin and the city deny any reports or witness statements that were made up, but Hagelin does admit DNA and other biological testing excluded the Bintz brothers from some of the blood evidence recovered during that investigation. The city also argues it cannot be hit with punitive damages and raises several legal defenses under state law. A federal scheduling conference is now set for September 9th.